I'm Paulette Davis Horton, and this is Booker T. Washington, and this is his birthday, April 5th, 1856. The last days of Booker T. Washington, triumph and tragedy. A few years ago, I made a deathbed promise to Mother Theora Richards, who lived in New York City. She said Booker T. Washington was assassinated, and she wanted it known. Reverend Ed Williams of Mobile, Alabama, stated, "They murdered my friend in 1915. He said a daily prayer from 1915 until his death in 1984. He said the death was hidden and one day somebody will find it." If Booker T. Washington were alive today, he would be 110 years old. This assassination was not a secret, and many people of that era knew about it. But through the years and the changing of time, people just stopped talking about it. I understand that many people are not familiar with Booker T. Washington and his legacy of Tuskegee Institute, now known as Tuskegee University. Therefore, I will give you a brief lesson on who he was and how he became one of the most memorable and influential figures in history, particularly in the field of education and racial uplift, advocating for economic self-reliance and vocational education. So how did a former slave from Virginia set up a school in Alabama? So that's what we're going to talk about today. My name is Paulette Davis Horton, and I am a graduate of the University of South Alabama in Mobile, Alabama, and I worked as a community health nurse for over 30 years with the Mobile County Health Department. This job allowed me to work in the community and get in touch with a lot of people, so I learned a lot of information from the elderly in the community. So in my presentation, I want to be inclusive. I want everyone to have a part of this understanding of the death of this leader. Everybody is not medical, because everyone has their own talent. But it just so happened that I'm medical and I understand it, so I want to present it where anyone can really understand it. For those of you who are not familiar with Booker T. Washington, I want to invite you to go to your local library and check out some books about him, or go on the internet and learn all you can about him. So therefore, when I do my part two, you can have some input and we can understand what went on with this leader. So the idea of a school in Tuskegee started with Lewis Adams, a former enslaved man and community leader who contacted General Armstrong of the Hampton Institute, and he said, "We need a teacher in Macomb County." And 24-year-old Booker T. Washington was highly recommended. So when Booker T. Washington arrived in Tuskegee in 1881, there was no campus, no funding, and no resources. It was just wilderness. The school officially opened July 4, 1881 in an old shanty building on the campus. Now, there wasn't campus, it was an old shanty building that they used to have the first classes. And people were interested in knowing how to read and write. How he became a household word is very interesting. The Atlanta Compromise speech he delivered on September the 18th, 1895 at the Cotton States and International Exposition. It was in Atlanta, and he advocated for vocational education and economic self-sufficiency for his race rather than the demand for civil rights and political equality. He wanted to focus on industrial training and economic progress. So now I want to talk to you about what Booker T. Washington, how Booker T. Washington looked to people in 1915. In books that you read about, it is saying in his last days, he was very sick, he was collapsing, and they told him to take a rest, and he wouldn't listen, as though he was a very hard-headed person. Mm-hmm. But I want to say that Booker T. Washington lived in an era where people grew their own food, and they had healthy food on the campus. So it wasn't like he was eating things that he shouldn't have eaten, and so he knew about the health, because he said that part of racial uplift is to take care of your body. So if he's preaching on people taking care of their bodies, it's safe to assume that he's taking care of his own. So I want to show you what Booker T. Washington looked like in 1915 prior to going to the North. In this first picture, this is Booker T. Washington on his campus walking with Julius Rosenwald. That's to get a good picture. And this is Booker T. Washington in his office. This is Booker T. Washington on one of his horses. Now, mind you, if he's on his horse, he's riding around, galloping up and down. That means that he is able to use his extremities, and he can get up, and he can walk, he can breathe, and everything. Now, this is him in 1915 in Louisiana, making a speech. So therefore, there was nothing wrong with his lungs, because all his speech, they said, was immaculate. This is another picture of Booker T. Washington on another horse. And he rode his horse every day. This picture is of Booker T. Washington in 1915 at Southern University, where he's on a boat. So he had to be able to walk. This picture is very special to me because Booker T. Washington was in my hometown on vacation from September the 18th to October 1st. He was fishing, hunting, relaxing, and he also visited Africatown in Plateau, Alabama. So this is a clear picture of what he looked like before his untimely death. There are several books that I would like for you to use in order to read more about this great leader. So, and I got some pictures, you know, the book got pictures in it and everything. This book is called Booker T. Washington, The Mastermind of a Child of Slavery. And they take it from when he was born up until the day he died. And this book says that Booker T. Washington died in 1915 because he worked himself to death. William Welch, I want you to make sure that you read about William Welch, and he has a lot to do with the medications that we have in America today. Booker T. Washington's death was revisited in 2006. And they said that Booker T. Washington died of high blood pressure. And that is my point that I would like to stress. As a registered nurse, I worked in home health, so I'm very familiar with blood pressures and everything, but I want you to read. But my point is that when Booker T. Washington's death was revisited, they only had 2 blood pressure readings. As a nurse, I feel that you cannot determine his cause of death with 2 blood pressure readings. Although they were malignant readings, you have to show a pattern. When he came in, and did it get lower? So that's my point of my presentation is we're going to learn together what happened to Booker T. Washington, because we need to have a conversation. Everybody can have an input and be a part so we can figure out what really happened to this great leader. Thank you so much. Hi. In addition, I want to add one of my favorite quotes by Booker T. Washington. He said, "The thing to do when one feels sure that he has said or done the right thing and is condemned is to stand still and keep quiet. If he is right, time will show it." And I want to say also too, when you're writing about history or learning about history, you don't have to have a PhD to tell the truth. You don't have to have a master's degree or any kind of degree to tell the truth. If you know the truth, speak the truth. And let us all learn together. Thank you.